Alderman Alder. Here. Alderman Campbell.
Here.
Alderman Galloway. Alderman Gardner.
Here.
Alderman Snyder.
Here.
We have 5 aldermen present. We have a quorum.
Turn on my mic here. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes of the meeting January 3rd, the special meeting minutes, and January 3rd regular meeting minutes? If so, I will entertain a motion.
There are no objections. I move that we approve both sets of minutes at once. The third special meeting of the
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Campbell to approve the minutes of January 3rd, 2023 special meeting minutes and January 3rd, 2022 regular meeting minutes. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, scheduled visitors and guests. We have David Counts from Eagle Springs Appeal. If you'd like to come on forward, please, and will you state your name and address? Is that right?
Okay, thank you. David Counts, 1536 East 400th Road, Bolivar, Missouri, 65613.
Okay, so do you want to read on this, or who will be taking this one?
The Planning and Development Director has some background information, and then there is an ordinance included in the packet that provides the Board of Aldermen the direction for what they are contemplating tonight. But if you'd like to hear the request from the applicant, and then staff could give their comments.
That'd be perfect. Great, sir.
I'm asking for a variance. I don't know if it's a variance, a delay. Our preliminary plat, we were instructed to put a pool in. I was instructed by members of city to, homeowners did not want a pool, and everybody was okay with that. And then about 2 months ago, they said they decided they want a pool. So it's winter time. And if I put a pool in, nobody's there to maintain it, take care of the pool. I mean, I don't know how the process with the city works. Like I said, I'll put the money in escrow, I'll do whatever I need to do. But putting the pool in before you have occupants doesn't make sense to me. And it's an ordinance of the cities, I'm assuming. But I mean, it's 166 lots, especially now. We're going into slight recession, soft landing, whatever you want to call it. But it might be year 2, 3. I don't care to put a deal on saying half the subdivision's built, pool's got to be built, or no occupancy permits are going to be issued. I mean, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do. But putting the pool in is a waste of money at this time. I mean, like I said, there's maintenance on a pool. We have nobody to take care of the pool. It's a bad liability. I mean, I've done many subdivisions in Ozark, and I've always done exactly what I said I would do. So.
Go ahead.
How long does it take to build a pool?
Start to finish. This one's got on-street parking. Start to finish, I could probably do one in weather permitting, 60 days, 90 days.
And when do you anticipate starting to build once everything's
I'm
approved?
good with starting in the summertime.
In the summer.
Hopefully we have lots. I mean, houses available. The problem with this, with an in-ground pool is you have to fill the pool to cure the materials. And once it pulls out and operational, you can't just shut a pool down. I mean, you can winterize a pool, but still recirculating water. It still has to, and a pool needs to be used to be efficient.
Now, you built part of this subdivision earlier.
First phase, yeah,
Done.
57 lots, I believe.
Okay.
Mhm.
And they have a pool.
No, they do not have a pool.
They do not have a pool.
There's only 57 lots.
57.
And I didn't know, I think somebody said that I talked to is going to be an ordinance of the city to require pools. I don't know.
So this pool, if it would be built, would it be used by those 57 homes as well?
If we decide to, yes.
So could they maintain the pool?
Yes, if they decide to, but it was their decision not to have a pool. To install walking trails and park equipment, which we haven't put the park equipment in, but we did all the walking trails and everything they asked us to do.
Okay.
And then Scott Fiddler, the homeowner association president, called me and says, because I asked him for a signed letter so I could bring it to the city. He said, well, there's one homeowner decided she wanted a pool. And that was probably 3 months ago. And by then, it's wintertime. So.
Okay, so you're saying that it was just this one homeowner?
One
who wanted
homeowner, one lady on the board voted to
on
have
the
a pool.
board? Okay, okay.
And I, like I said, I don't mind putting a pool in.
Mhm,
I think pools need to be put in when they should be put in. I
mhm.
mean, pools are a menace for subdivisions. I mean, they're a lot of work, a lot of money, and barely used. We put a pool in the old world, and I mean, I bet there were 100 people in it all year,
Mhm,
but
mhm. Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Alderman Gardner.
Couple of questions, David.
Yes, sir.
You said the phase one, would or would not, it has not been, if you have a pool, it's not been decided whether they would use the pool. Is that correct?
I mean, just out of respect to the homeowners that I built most of the houses in phase one, I think they deserve to have access to
Right.
the pool.
Right.
After the conversation and all the drama that we went through, it's kind of a hard decision to say, hey, yeah, you get to use the pool, but we're going to. I mean, we're not going to. They talked to me about homeowners dues, and I mean, I'm very involved. As much as I don't want to be in the homeowner association because they want covenants and restrictions, and we're changing a few things, but.
But you knew all this before you ever filed the preliminary plat, that there would need to be a pool and
Yes, sir.
and that there would probably need to be covenants and restrictions. I mean, that's nothing unusual.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just confused why this is, they told you 2 months ago. It's my understanding
That
that
they
they decided,
decided, it's probably 3 months, they decided they wanted a pool because,
and you haven't done anything for 3 months.
no, we can't, it's winter time.
Can't do
They
it.
pool in the winter time because concrete won't cure. If they would have said that. And I spoke with several officials at the city asking, what do we do? Well, we want to do what the homeowners want to do. But you can't, I mean, they decide last minute, they want a pool, you don't just put a pool in the ground. And then we're going through winter, concrete's got to cure.
Well, you mentioned something, and I, we probably should hear from Cameron
That's fine.
before we say too much, but you said that you'd be willing to escrow the pool.
Uh,
That's a noble gesture, but the city,
It's not,
this person on city council is into that because I don't put the city in the position of ever having to build the pool
Right.
if there's a default. And we know how long it took to get the other one built. So that's why I'm personally a little bit hesitant. I want to make sure that sure that it's done, and escrow is not my solution.
right, withhold occupancy permits.
Yeah.
I mean, we did it under different circumstances in Woodcrest. We didn't have secondary pedestals. Everybody that bought a permit had to sign a piece of paper saying they couldn't get an occupancy until the secondary pedestals were delivered.
Am my understanding that you would be, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth,
No, that's fine.
but am I understanding that you would be okay with us allowing you to sell lots by approving the plat, but knowing in advance that there, and I don't even know if we can do this, so if I'm stepping out of line, swap me. But with sell lots, but with the buyers of the lots, the owners of the lots, knowing full well that they will not get a building permit until there's a pool in.
An occupancy permit.
Occupancy
That's what we
permit.
did in Woodcrest. And those were special circumstances. I understand that, but it's still the same purpose. But I mean, like I said, we can let me sell lots and do whatever you want to. Say by July, the pool's done when it should be done. It should be done from May to August, September. It depends on the weather at the latest.
Well, when you, and I've never done a subdivision like you've done, so this is a question out of ignorance. I'm not trying to imply that I know the answer and I'm trying to play gotcha. Okay, but when you filed your preliminary plat, did you take into consideration any kind of timeline for a pool?
I did.
And now it's gone.
But like I stated earlier, I was supposed to work with the homeowner association. I did exactly. I don't know
the phase one homeowners.
No, phase one homeowner association, right, for phase 2 and 3.
Yeah, because
they asked me not to put a pool.
Yeah.
They asked me to put walking trails, playground equipment. And I said, fine, whatever. I mean, It's same price either way.
Well, I've got a question for Cameron.
What I can do here is, if it's okay, Mr. Counts,
Yes, sir.
we'll go ahead and call Cameron up and we'll
Yes,
speak to him a little bit and I'll bring
Yes,
you
sir.
back up.
Thank
Thank you. Cameron, on the plat, the preliminary plat that was approved, that had the pool on it. Was that for all phases or just phase one?
So in looking back to kind of give you a history, this is a plat that falls under our newer system where it's administratively approved by final plat through the ARC or Administrative Review Committee. When the preliminary plat was approved, it was signed, the ordinance was signed January 4th, 2021. During that approval review process through the commission and board, it did notate that the pool shall be completed before recording a final plat. The pool was shown in phase 2. At that time, they had phase 2 and 3. They could have final platted phase 2, then came back later with phase 3. In this case, they're trying to final plat both phase 2 and 3. So that kind of indicates that the pool has to be completed before a final plat's recorded. So when the staff went through the review of that final plat application, we noted that it did not substantially conform to the preliminary plat based on that requirement. So by ordinance, then we have to deny that approval, and then the applicant developer can choose to appeal that denial to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then if they need to go further, to the Board of Alderman. The Planning and Zoning Commission did not approve the appeal, and so that's why he's before you this evening to reinvestigate that so that the board can make a determination if the final plat will substantially conform to the preliminary plat.
Okay, so when the original preliminary plat was filed, the pool was in phase 2.
It was shown on the
Shown on
preliminary
phase
plat as
two,
phase 2, and now we're requesting a final plat phase 2 and 3 at
Okay, well, I'm
once.
just trying to figure out how phase 1 gets involved in deciding if there's going to be a pool or owners association, but I understand that those lots were sold and they had every indication that there would be a pool because it was on the phase 2 plan. Okay. I'm conflicted, but let me be quiet for a minute.
Let's go.
There is not an ordinance, is there, that required the pool to be put in?
Not currently, there is not an ordinance, but during the process of approving that preliminary plat, it did note in the staff review of the preliminary plat, and then on staff report packet, and then the explanation sheet that went to the Board of Alderman, it noted the requirement to have the pool completed before recording the final plat.
Sure, but that would have been the developer's proposal to put the pool in. That was not a requirement.
Yes, that was back when staff was reviewing the application with the developer and their consultants. We noted about the pool and they agreed to require the pool. We did have some discussions back and forth about potentially moving the pool to phase 3, or are you committing to make sure this is being done for final plat, and it would remain in the application.
I guess the position that I heard from the developer is that the delay in getting the pool built was due to the homeowners association making a request that it not be built. Was that something that was run through the city? Did the staff?
Yes,
aware that?
several months back in the summer, and Mr. Counts did reach out to us and say they have requested of potentially doing a playground or trails as opposed to pool. At that time, we did request to get something in writing from the HOA so that we can, and the planning zoning chairman, to present that, to give staff guidance on what to do. Followed up again and never received that. I did find on the HOA meeting minutes back in December, had some notes here, December, January, the prior year, I think 2021. They had discussions at the HOA about the pool, but I never saw any follow-up from there. So at this point, we never got any further direction that they were looking at maybe delaying that pool.
So the HOA never documented any type of position that you're aware of?
Yes, I did. Before this started through the process, I did reach out to the HOA representatives through their website and their emails, and never got a response from them, just to try to follow up on staff's part. But yes, we did know that they were maybe not wanting to build the pool, but we just never got any direction from the HOA in writing that we requested to present to at the time, the mayor, Jackson, and the planning zoning chairman, Mr. Garrison.
Yeah, I could see where the developer might be embarrassed by that, but it would seem to me that the HOA would have a responsibility if to provide formal guidance to the developer so that the staff could work on it timely.
Yeah.
I can see the dilemma there. Thank you.
Yes.
Your documentation.
Uh-huh.
It indicates that the pool must be built. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, again, back when staff went through the review back and forth with the applicant for preliminary plat, before it went to the commission, we know the requirement of the pool. The staff's background that was presented to the board noted the requirement of the pool. The explanation sheet that went with Bill 3210 noted that requirement of the pool. And then when the ordinance was signed, it kind of put all that in effect of that requirement when they signed the ordinance for the approval of the preliminary plat.
So when it is cut and dry, by definition, that pool needs to be built. Is that correct?
By the approval of that ordinance, it did note before final plats recorded, the pool shall be completed. And that's what staff has to rely on for our administrative review.
And we have nothing from the HOA, nothing in writing, not even a phone call. Because I hear a lot of these, and I'm not pointing fingers, but when I hear they, I can they everything, but they doesn't mean anything to me if I don't have a specific they.
Yeah, no, staff has not been presented with anything from the HOA.
Thank you.
Alderman Snyder. Campbell. Wow. Wow.
I might have misheard something a while ago, but so is the pool required prior to being able to build or prior to occupancy permits?
The pool is required by ordinance before a final plat is recorded.
Which means building.
Which means you can't even sell that lot or pull a permit because it's not even a legal tract of land.
Okay. So it's really not an occupancy permit thing.
Based on the ordinance.
It's a selling and building on the lot.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Alderman Gardner.
Is it fair to say that when the preliminary plat was first approved, and there were second and third phases were not, but the first phase, when they started building lots, I'm just trying to understand the mechanics because we've had so many changes. When the preliminary plat was approved, was that just for the first phase? And when they started selling lots and building, was it clear to our rules or whatever that nothing could be built in 2 and 3 because it wasn't final platted yet? But when he had a final plat on lot 1 or phase 1, it was the approval was shown though on the plat, not in phase 1, right?
Yeah, this discussion this evening has nothing to do with the approval of phase 1.
Right. No, I'm just trying to tell you how we got here. Because if that pool, we wouldn't be here tonight if that pool had been in phase 1.
Can't answer that. That was started in 2007. Something.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sympathetic to the financial burden that this puts on any developer. But I'm also, there's history to deal with here, and we've got rules that say there need to be a pool. And I'm just, I don't know. I would like, well, let me ask you this. How does the city feel? I know how the city feels and how I feel about escrow. That's a no deal as far as I'm concerned. But how does the city feel about, or staff, I should say, about doing something official, and this may be an Amanda question too, that says we can not get an occupancy permit until the pool is built. Now, I don't like that because we've been through that before, and that was just a real pain, not knowing for sure if it was going to get built or when, and none of us here like that. But is that even? Are there circumstances under which that could feasibly work satisfactorily for staff? Just a question.
The appeal tonight is coming forward pursuant to a more recent code amendment. So it's in your packet. It's after the letter that has the planning and development heading at the top. And it references section 410-180. And in that section, it's actually on the second page, the appeals process begins at the bottom under subsection D. And then the section where it involves the board is on the second page under D. And it gives guidance to the Board of Aldermen. Appeal shall be limited to a determination as to whether or not the final plat substantially conforms to the preliminary plat. It does not.
Answer to that.
It does not provide an option for escrow or taking into consideration withholding building permits or occupancy permits. So the question under this process is just that substantially conforms issue. So that is not a
Okay.
mechanism by this ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, if it, I could still, do I still have the floor? Okay. Thank you for that. That being the case, I'm thinking that there's no way we can approve it under those circumstances, but I would certainly be in favor of finding a way somehow to make it work. I have no idea what that is. But as far as tonight goes, I don't think we can do it.
Well, and I think for path forward, correct me if I'm wrong, but if he was just trying to plat the second phase, not the second and third phase, he would be able to continue to go forward and still have time to build the pool. It's the final plat of the third phase that's
It's tied to the final plat of recording and it's in phase 2, so you'd be trying to record phase 2. So no, it would still be in effect.
Okay. Go ahead. You.
Yeah, that. I mean, the substantially conforming language is. I don't see how it could be interpreted as any other than you have to have your amenity, and I don't. I mean, if that's what we put down in our rules, I would be hard pressed to not. Want to follow our rules. That's my comment, but that wasn't my question. The issue that was raised by the developer, and it may not be relevant in light of the standard that we have to follow, but he raised the issue of impossibility. I think the concern being that it would not be possible to build a pool now because of the season. I'm not. I used to sell swimming pools. I know we sold them in the summer. But that was, I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was. What can be made of the impossibility argument here?
It may come down to the construction type of the pool, but we do have one currently under construction for River Ranch Apartments. But again, I do agree that a plaster type pool, you immediately have to fill it with water to cure that plaster. There may just be means and methods that have to be taken for the type of pool or monitoring that or blanketing that or whatever it is. I don't have that answer, but I know it can be done because we have one under construction at this time.
And I'll invite Mr. Counts to respond to that, but when it's time for Cameron to, I don't want to say vacate, but when he's finished. But that's all my questions.
I do have a question because I think I may have misunderstood something, a couple of things. The preliminary plat is for phases 2 and 3, correct?
The preliminary plat was approved for phase 2 and 3.
But to 2 and 3.
Yes.
And now the request for final plat is for both 2 and 3. Is
That's
that correct?
Yeah.
I believe that means that all the infrastructure for both 2 and 3 is probably in. So I guess I have a question under our new rules is that, and I think I know the answer, but if the developer were to, not that this makes sense, to request final plat for only phase 3, that wouldn't change anything because it was all done together as a phase 2 and 3.
I think my bigger concern would be we wouldn't be final platting phase 2 for that infrastructure to be approved and accepted by the city for water, sewer, and the streets. So I think that kind of creates some of maybe a liability or concern if only phase 3 was platted at this time or phase.
And I was just seeking options or whatever, and you try to maybe flip it over and do 3 instead of 2 or whatever. The second question I have is currently, I mean, phase 1 does have an HOA and it's a good standing with the state of Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, yes, as far as I know, they are still registered and in good standings. I do know that there has been some changeover with the president, but they are still active and have a website and they are in still good standing.
And since phase 1, 2, and 3 are all platted, the HOA will govern the entire subdivision and all 3 plats. Is that correct?
I think that would be what the expectation would be of staff, but I think that would be left to the developer and how he negotiates that. Since there's covenants already recorded for phase 1, and he's working on covenants for phase 2 and 3 to be recorded at the plat. And so I think that's still something up in the air for him to negotiate on his side.
So maybe I guess that leads me to a question also for Mr. Counts. Is there going to be, is the expectation that there will be a separate HOA for phase 2 and 3 with a different set of covenants and restrictions than phase 1? And I only ask that because in my familiarity with covenants and restrictions and phasing the subdivisions, typically, and I don't know in this particular case, an HOA that is formed, which is a requirement by our code, you have to have an HOA recorded with the Secretary of State. And there are covenants and restrictions that you need to provide to us as part of the final planning process. That being said, for many of the subdivisions that I've seen, the developer retains authority and the majority of the voting in the subdivisions and through the HOA until 100% or close to it of the lots are either sold or built on or so forth. So I just know that it was like that in my subdivision to where the developer had, everybody that lived in had one vote, but the developer had 10 per lot. And so there was no way that any of the residents could have any authority over anything really until such time that the developer relinquished that authority over to them. And I just was curious as to what the covenants and restrictions for this particular situation say for phase 1, and if those are going to be different for phase 2 and 3. I'm sorry, I just to add to the conversation.
I'd let the developer answer that on this one.
One thing I'll add while Cameron is up here is last time we had something like this, then we have an issue with people needing to get occupancy permits, but the pool was not built. And so we found ourselves in a situation where people were trying to move into houses and they did not have an occupancy.
Yeah, there was a situation that came up where there was more than one builder in the subdivision, and they were, yes, scrambling as well because the final plat getting recorded and then delaying that construction of the pool and then tying that to the occupancy. Yes, that did bring up some concerns with those builders.
And so we potentially would be entering into the same kind of scenario with that if we didn't have a completed pool and pool house and lots were getting sold and built and sold to the new homeowners, potentially. So, Mr. Geller. I'm sorry, it was Eddie.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Campbell.
I didn't realize it's like that.
Again, I think we might be getting occupancy permits and selling the lots, 2 different things. On the other subdivision, Old World Estates, it was an occupancy permit thing. Lots had already been sold. Here we're talking about selling the lots and building. We're not talking about occupancy permits. Am I correct?
The Old World actually started with the recording of the final plat where we were not going to record that. Then it got approved to be recorded with the escrow understanding, and then eventually it did get into occupancy. But it went through, I think, 3 approvals of kind of extending that allowance.
Okay, but this one's not at that stage right now.
No.
Okay. Anyway, trying to work out a solution on this. And I guess this might be a little bit of a hypothetical, but if we could find a way to get past the pool deal, when would the developer be ready to start selling lots?
I I mean, I don't know how long. Sunset items from Public Works remaining, so I guess maybe in a couple weeks, they could probably wrap up those items. Minus the pool and pool house and record that final plat.
So the infrastructure is pretty much done.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. That's just something I wanted to know, to make my decision on.
Mr. Gardner.
Well, it still comes down to the fact that we have to act on what the city attorney said, regardless of what a potential solution is. We have to act on that tonight, and that I think is very clear. But just a little bit of discussion on what ifs beyond that. I don't like the potential communication problem that would come up if we allowed the builders to get a permit and start building with the knowledge on our part that they would not get an occupancy permit until the pool was done, because that leaves it up to somebody other than the city to tell them that. And that is not a good thing. People that I hate to put my own profession under the gun, but there could be a situation where a builder wouldn't tell them, oh, you can't move in until we get the pool built. There could also be a situation that a realtor would sell a house and have a closing date sooner than what the pool could be built as. And there are all kinds of communication problems that could happen here, and the city is holding the bag, regardless of whose job. I mean, it sounds good on paper, but somebody is not going to get communicated with properly, or at least it holds that potential.
Mr. Galloway.
Yeah, I remember that we had that issue before. And I remember also that I think many people thought that the city was to blame for that situation where we we were not to blame. That was, and then I think we had to come up with a plan to communicate about what the actual situation was. If I mean, we had meetings, more than one, to try to resolve that. I don't want to go through that one again. If that's what's being proposed.
Any more questions or for our planning director? Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Counts? Okay, Mr. Counts, if you come back, I think you do need to state your name and address one more time.
David Counts, 1563 East 400th. I just moved, so sorry. Bolivar, Missouri 65613.
On the issue of impossibility, the concern that you raised that it would not be possible to construct the pool beginning now and have it functional. And now I heard, I don't want you to be in a spat with our director planning development, but I mean, are there pools out there that can get around impossibility?
Yeah, wrong kind of pool, but not a commercial pool. I mean, you're gonna put a pool in with a lining that's gonna have leaks, gonna have issues. The pools that we put in, as you guys spoke of, Old World's the best pool money can buy.
Yeah.
And when you have commercial, if you do have heavy use, you need a different type of pool.
Thank you for that. I'll just tell you the dilemma I think that faces the board is, I mean, we've got a really clear ordinance that we have to interpret. So we're not legislating today. We have to apply the ordinance. I'm by training an attorney, then the phrase would be quasi judicial. We sit as a legislature generally on this kind of thing. We have to apply the law to the appeal. And I think the problem is the substantial conformity language of our own ordinance. And if I remember, I was one of the prime movers to get this whole process changed, because I think I even worked with you on that because you were running into all kinds of problems with the old system of getting plats approved. And I wasn't the only one I know, but I remember I pushed hard. So I think this was part of that reform. I think that thinking here is that we're kind of or at least I feel I'm kind of constrained to follow the ordinance. And so I don't know for the decision that I have to make today. I mean, I want to hold myself accountable. I don't want you to.
I don't blame, I would too.
I don't want you to think that I'm saying one thing and doing another or anybody
Sure.
else. That's kind of where I'm at, just so you know.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Counts?
May I speak?
Yes, sir.
How is it possible? I actually don't know if it's an ordinance that you have to have a pool in the subdivision. I think it was something that was passed, a requirement of the final plat. Is there an ordinance?
There's no sense that you put a pool in, but there is an ordinance that says if you put a pool on your preliminary
Fine.
plat, then you have to build the pool at
Okay.
this point in this stage.
But how is it so accessible that homeowners call, make a call, talk to the city? They don't want a pool, they don't have to have a pool.
Well, I do believe at that time, we had a mechanism to removing the pool, but I don't believe that
But
that
that
option
was
was taken.
3 months ago. So we took that mechanism out before this final plat is what you're telling me. So I could go to the homeowner association tomorrow and have them sign a letter saying they don't want a pool. I get final plat.
I'd have to refer back to Mr. Smith to make sure that the ordinances were followed correctly, but as far as you being able to remove the pool at this
Mhm.
time, I wouldn't be able to clearly speak on that.
So I mean, but explain it to me how this process works. They say they don't want a pool, we don't have to have a pool.
Well,
How is that?
I have
Yeah,
the
no,
emails and the dialogue back and forth between you and the city, and I think they were trying to communicate that with you from what I've seen,
I've not seen that.
Mr. Keller.
Well, I mean.
That's me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Campbell. Did that twice.
If I understood, Mr. Smith correctly, we did our due diligence to try to get something in writing from the homeowners association that did exactly what you said. How do we go about doing? I don't know where else we can go if the homeowners association is not willing to put it in writing and submit it to the city. I hate to say it this way, but I think your problems with the HOA not standing behind you. I don't think it's with the city.
I'm not saying I have issues with the city. I'm asking to explain to me how an HOA can say they don't want a pool and not put a pool in.
We're not saying
That was spoke to me that if they said they didn't want a pool, we could not have a pool. We could have walking
who
fence.
said that to you.
I not naming names, but
Okay.
it spoke to me.
I will say this. I feel pretty sure that if any of our staff said that to you, they probably went as far as to say, okay, we need that officially. Okay, and we didn't get it officially.
No, sir, but that's not the question I'm asking.
What is your
The question I'm asking is how can they determine if we get a pool or not, if it's on the final plat, the homeowner association,
Who's they?
the homeowner association?
How can they determine?
Yeah, all I had to do is get a signed letter. And I was informed to work with the HOA, so try to understand my position just a little, is all I'm asking.
Who told you to work with the HOA, the city?
Yes, I was told that if they did not want a pool, if they would put it in writing, we didn't have to have a pool.
Okay,
This went on for meeting after meeting
Okay.
after meeting, they did not want a pool. And then it comes time for me to final plat or close to final platting, I call them. Hey, after 27 phone calls, I get a call back from Mr. Fiddler, Scott Fiddler, the president. I says, I need your letter. And I talked to Chris Franklin. And I said, I need your letter. Chris Franklin said, I'll get it to you in 2 days.
okay.
I get a call 5 or 6 days later. Well, the HOA changed their mind. So I'm instructed to work with the HOA. Now I'm getting punished for working with the HOA.
We're not punishing
Yes,
you.
sir, you are.
We did not put the pool on the final plan. On the preliminary plan.
Yes, you did. They were the city to have the pool on the final plat, which.
I misspoke.
Correct.
The city did not require you to have a pool on the preliminary plan.
Yes, sir, they did.
I may be unclear on that then.
Yes, sir.
We
They
would disagree with you on that. We don't require you
You
to,
don't, yes, sir, you did. To approve my preliminary plat, you did require a pool.
because you put it in.
Sir, we were told to put it in the pool to get a preliminary plat.
I think we need to get a second,
That's
Opinion.
common
Mr.
sense.
Smith on this. But does anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Counts? If you don't mind it.
I know in the past, I just want to speak to that one remark about. I don't remember voting on this, but I know in the past at times, if we've gotten pushback from the community on things, I think we did it with a recent development that, you know, we said, you know, it'd be best if maybe you came back and put a pool in, because you're, you know, they're thinking that your people are going to go over and use the neighboring development's pool. I don't remember that controversy happening very often, but I'm not saying it didn't. But I wanted to address that question of how, I think it's an important one, and how can an HOA get around a ordinance that says that we've got to approve or that we can't approve a final plat that is not substantially conforming. My answer sitting here would be they can't. I don't know of any mechanism, the city attorney is aware of one, that says that an HOA can vote and say, I want the developer to follow the preliminary or the final plat requirements. I mean, there's nothing that we would delegate to them. So I do take your point. I think what you're saying is, well, I was kind of led to believe if I worked with them that I wouldn't have to put it in the pool. But I don't know that it ever got to the point where it truly became an issue, because you didn't get a letter from anybody saying, this is what we want. But I do understand that you would want as a developer to have some bright lines. When we did have this reform legislation, but I think the bright line is pretty clear. There's no mechanism under our statute that allows an HOA to change the plat.
So why was I informed to work with the HOA? And if they didn't want a pool, we didn't have to put a pool in.
I don't know. I didn't make that decision. I sit here applying the ordinance. I'm not the administration.
No,
I
I
got
understand.
elected by the people to vote on things and to judge these kinds of things. You know, we have to follow the law, but it is important. I'm reinforcing your point. Okay, I am reinforcing your point. All right, thank you.
Mr. Gardner.
I don't know who's first. Okay, I guess I was. I think we're beating a dead horse here until we can determine somehow if there is a possibility that Mr. Counts was told that if the homeowners association didn't want it, he didn't have to do it. Now, I can't understand. I can't believe that exact statement would be made. You may have interpreted it that way. I don't know. But I think there's certainly there has got to be if a homeowners association says we don't want a pool, and it's unanimous, not unanimous, but it's whatever their voting regulations are, it's clear that they don't want it, and they make it clear publicly and in writing somehow to us, that maybe we have an obligation to figure out a way to remove that requirement. But I'm not aware of any requirement that the city has ever had that you have to have a pool. We've had lots of discussions, and we've had them with the parks director. Our pools are the pool that we have, both of them indoor and outdoor, they're overcrowded. I mean, I'm in favor of subdivisions having pools. I can give you a number of examples which you're already aware of successful subdivisions that are very strong, and they remain strong because they have amenities and a strong HOA. But I don't know that we can require that. I don't know that we have an ordinance that requires that they have a pool. The ordinance requires that if it's on the preliminary plan, it has to be built. Can anybody tell me, Cameron, Steve, or Amanda, does our ordinance have any kind of requirements for subdivision of any size to have a pool?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, I need to.
Are we calling Cameron up now?
Well, I asked a question that only he can answer. I think
I had a question for him too, and I was overlooked. Because Mr. Counts was still at the podium.
Okay.
I didn't know this. I didn't know that some of us could speak directly to the staff. Well, and some of us couldn't.
Well, what I might do is, if we can revisit that question, Alderman Gardner, and
Any way you want to handle it, Mr. Mayor, is fine with me. I just think that we need to know. And you don't have to answer that now. Because what we have to do tonight is pretty clear. The city attorney has told us that. But what happens after tonight is going to require the knowledge of whether or not anybody could have voted on that because we had an ordinance that said you had to do it, which I don't think we have.
well, I will say that, yeah, but really what we're here to weigh in on, or you guys are here to weigh in on, is whether the staff made the wrong call in saying that it didn't substantially conform to the plat. And
Whether they made the right call and it was misunderstood.
Yeah, and so, Eddie, you had a question for Mr. Counts, though?
No, what I had asked for prior to going back around the room was that I speak to Mr. Smith.
Okay.
And you basically told me no, but then when it got around there, the rules changed. And I've got a problem with that.
I apologize for that. It was my intentions, but if you do have a question for Mr. Smith.
Okay. My question for you is. Did, let me think about it. It was a two-part question. Ultimate question is the same question that Rick answered. I just got a little upset that we're being treated differently up here. A preliminary plan that included a pool. And was the pool put on that preliminary plat because the city told him he had to have a pool?
To answer your first question, the preliminary plat didn't include the pool.
It did.
Yes.
Okay, I read that, yeah.
Regard the summary that we submitted. I'm gonna just go through this for clarification because it's been going on for a few years now, since October 15th, 2020. Staff emailed to the engineer at the time, worked on the pre-application of the preliminary plat. So this is before it ever got to the process. Highlight email, this completion requirement would be the same, basically referring to the buffer yard, same for the pool, as it would have to be completed with the public improvements prior to recording final plat. Following on down there, followed up again regarding the pool. If we are not committing, this is from me personally, if we are not committing to installing in phase 2, maybe it can be noted in the notes for clarification for future. Just trying to avoid having the approved preliminary plat and everyone expecting the pool to be completed before final plat. If that is noted, that is not the intent of the developer. Maybe there could be a schedule identified, maybe there could be a schedule identified in the construction, something to convey to the homeowners, just in case they move in with the expectation in the pool and not clear when the pool will be completed. So this went on, response back from the engineer, this all makes sense. So at that time, staff was being asked by the board to look at ordinances requiring pools, and that it wasn't in the ordinance. Staff worked the developer to get the pool in place because of the size of the subdivision, offered an opportunity for them to remove that requirement. They continue to commit to that. So following that, back in October of 2020, we proceeded with the application of preliminary plat. It notes in the staff report or review that the pool is required to be completed before final plat. Moving on into the background from the staff report to the commission and board, makes reference to that pool. And then the explanation sheet and the ordinance, as I noted, when that preliminary plat was approved, it had the pool in there. So again, the ordinance that was put in place for staff to enforce was the pool had to be completed before final plat recording. And so that's when staff reviewed the final plat application. It does not substantially conform to the approval of the preliminary plat.
Okay.
And I want to follow up, about the evidently confusion with the HOA and the board. So
Can I respond to that part first?
Yep.
Because that answers my question.
Mhm.
I just wanted everybody up here to understand that the city did everything they could to for this not to happen. And the fact that it happened is not staff's fault. But I don't know if everybody understood that, but Cameron explained it perfectly in my mind.
Please go on with what you're.
September or the summer of 2022, I had 2 phone conversations with the developer regarding the construction of the pool. This is through a verbal. The developer called and made me aware of the potential change playground equipment as opposed to the pool, as it was a request of the HOA. I asked the developer to get me a letter from the HOA and to also provide details of what the playground or alternative amenities would be, so that I could further discuss with city staff, city administrator, mayor, and planning zone chairman for consideration. I followed up with a second call regarding the status. I received no additional correspondence. And then I followed up later, September 9th, 2022, email correspondence to the developer regarding the construction of the pool. I want to touch base on the Eagle Springs subdivision. We have spoken about the possibility of building amenities as opposed to the swimming pool that you were proposing. You're going to reach out to the HOA president, as the understanding is the HOA had requested no pool. You're going to get a letter from the HOA president along with providing a plan for what might be constructed as opposed to the pool. I noted that I would present this to the city administrator, mayor, and planning zone chairman for consideration. I want to follow up on the status and see what the direction is, how we'd like to proceed. Never committed that this would approve that. I would have to take that and present that because they sign off on the plat. If the above is no longer the plan, what is the timeline for submitting for a pool permit and the anticipated construction? I got a follow-up, another email to the developer September 23rd regarding construction. I want to follow up to see if there has been any additional thoughts regarding this request. September 24, 2022, email response from developer regarding construction. I hadn't responded due to the fact that Eagle Springs HOA seems to have some who want a pool now. The HOA reps told us earlier this year they wanted a park in lieu of the pool. David Counts is trying to get an answer from them. If they hadn't have requested not wanting a pool, we would have started the pool during the infrastructure phase. I will check with council and let you know what's staying. So from that point, we have not had anything back other than the application for final plat. And again, it's in the summary that provided to you all that kind of highlights all the correspondence.
Mr. Campbell.
I'm gonna call for the vote.
All right, I will entertain a motion. Or I just call for vote, yea or nay. Okay, I would entertain a motion from the board.
I make a motion to deny the appeal.
Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, seconded by Alderman Snyder to deny the appeal from David Counts for Eagle Springs. Then roll call vote, please.
Can I ask?
Yes.
So a nay vote is denying. Okay, clarify for me.
The way I intended it. I don't think it came out this way. If I vote yes to deny the appeal, then I'm against the appeal.
The motion
Then
is made
I
to
vote it
deny.
down.
Yeah, so yeas would be to deny it, nays would be to not deny.
Nay would be to approve it.
Thank you.
That's
Ready for roll call?
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Campbell,
aye.
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Gardner,
Aye.
Alderman Elder. Aye. Alderman Galloway. We
We have 5 votes. The motion to deny the appeal carries.
I don't believe we can. Just to keep it in order, I don't believe I can do that.
So who do I talk to? I apologize for that. But.
Sir, we do have other orders that we do have other things we need to get to here. I do apologize. Okay, please give me a call. Moving on to second scheduled visitor, Linda Stevens. Does any of you want to handle this one?
Oh, she's on Zoom.
Okay. Okay, Steve, do you have anything to add to this? Okay. Mrs. Stevens, we're
Yes, sir.
appreciate you being here with us. Steve, if you want to.
Thank you for having me. Yes, sir. My name is Linda Stevens. I live at 402 11th Street, apartment number 37, building 11. It's low income housing, and I would like to request someone to look into this property here for abusive offenses against me. Some of our people, basically, I need to get an emergency order to have this unit outside my apartment shut down before it kills somebody else. And I don't know what to do about it. I've lived here for 2.5 years. I've had problems with the establishment here. I've had my apartment searched. I've had my porch tore up and most of it thrown away because I wasn't allowed to have this or that or something else. Now, of course, you know, I'm not the only one all this is happening to. So, you know, we're all really scared. But as things stand right now in my apartment, I am afraid to go to sleep at night because of this unit out here. I sent a package in that that shows the unit, kind of gives an idea of, yes, sir, and kind of gives an idea of what's going on here. That big green box right there. Yes, I learned my first year in electrician school that one of those green boxes should never be within 65 feet of a home because of its dangers. Now, that thing was turned on in June, and at that time, I had just got done getting my right shoulder rotor cuff completely rebuilt. I was coming off of a bicep tendon repair on the other arm, throat widening, and a heart ablation when they turned this thing on. And I had reported it to the management, and they refused to, she flat out refused to do anything about it, call anybody, have anybody check on it. Since then, I have I've tried to get a hold of it, just about everybody I possibly could think of. But now I'm in this situation where this thing needs to turn off. It's already killed my dog. When they first turned it on, you'll see the blast there, the one page that has the numbers on, the number 90. When it hit 90 that morning at 5:30, my dog was throwing up by the door and was having trouble breathing, constantly panting all day. I finally took him down to the vet to have him looked at. I took him out of town because that's, you know, my family's from the Monad area. So I took him down there to home, And, he had a tumor the size of a quarter that metastasized 800%. My vet was just freaked out on it. I was too. The only thing we knew to do was to just keep him comfortable. In the meantime, I'm talking to management here. I'm talking to all T's. I'm trying to get anybody to come out here and do something with this. And I got turned down every way possible. I even called Liberty Utilities to come in and read my home, and they would not do it. They wouldn't come in and check the amperage, the APMs per square meter. It's just to, let me know I'm the one going crazy, and nobody has ever been able to do that. They refuse to come in my house and look at it. They don't want to touch it. I've had people come out adjusting that box at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. They've been out here. They come out here all the time. Once in a while, they'll come out during the day. The gentleman who lives just to the right of this, the electrical meters and all, he passed away. He's dead. And he dropped dead. I talked to his sister about it. They had no clue that he was that close to dying. In fact, they had been ordering him medical equipment. Now, the lady next to that, and next to him, she's been suffering the same symptoms as I have. And she's scared to say anything. She doesn't want to. Hello? She doesn't. Hello?
We're here.
Okay. So anyway, she's scared as I am. We go to bed at night and we're waking up with migraines ourselves and getting sick. I had to have the rescue people come out and check my heart. This was right after a second ablation that I had. So I don't know what. I'm coming to you to see if you can help me get these people to at least turn it off until I can move. This has been going on for 6 months, and I've been suffering with dizziness, confusion, headache, heart palpitations. I'm now on a bunch of medicines because of this. I'm on a medicine to get my heart to stop having spasms. I've been having tremors and eye shaking and vibration. I've been going to stay at hotels to try to download for days so we can come home. And it just continues on. And the management and the owner of this property, nobody will do anything about it. And I need your guys' help.
Well, Mrs. Stevens, I'm going to ask a couple questions here from staff.
Okay.
And we did have somebody go out and take pictures of this and look at this, didn't we?
But yeah, the picture that you saw was taken by staff. So we did go out, we did evaluate. In the beginning, we wanted to make sure we understood exactly what unit. As you can see from the wall, there's a lot of things that are there. You have air conditioning units, you have electrical meter boxes, and this green box, as we're talking about, is cable fiber box. That's what that is. And you also see some other equipment that are there, like phone and things like that. So, and there's different types of utilities in this location. So, if you're asking for, if you'd like to ask the staff to evaluate this further from an IBC standpoint, International Building Codes, to determine if there is a distance, as I heard in the explanation, that there's a belief that this type of a box must be 55 feet away from any dwelling unit. I don't know the answer to that. But that's certainly something that we can check out. I don't know the answer to that tonight.
I'm going to assume it's some sort of a suddenly splice box or something there, probably for their internet or cable or both. But
Yes, sir. It's a router.
Okay.
Can I?
It's me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw his blinking over there. I didn't realize you had one going. Mr. Campbell.
I think that Bell management. We need to react to this. I don't know if there's any action or advice the city can give to Bell management, but I do think that the landlord owes it to their tenants to check this out and figure out what's going on. I do think there's something going on just by virtue of the readings of the amps per square meter.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, but I'm not sure that I believe it's a risk to the city, but I think the city does need to take care of our citizens, especially our elderly citizens, because I'm
Thank
getting
you.
close to getting elderly
Thank you,
myself.
sir.
Um,
Thank you, sir.
But, if there's anything we can do to get some action out of Bell management on this, I think that's the route that we should take.
Mr. Gardner.
Yes, I agree with Eddie, to this, to the point that this lady needs an advocate. And she doesn't have anybody so far that has stepped up and is willing to be that. I don't, from my knowledge of city government, I don't think it is our obligation
Right,
legally.
right. I know.
Who's saying that? She is, okay. I don't think it's our obligation for the city to be that advocate, but I would like for somebody to do that. She doesn't have anybody that would do it. And RJ, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but if there's anybody here that understands electricity, it would be you. And I've heard for years in my business that electromagnetic frequencies can cause problems. I don't know if they do or not. There's all kinds of arguments. I don't even know if this cable box emits that sort of thing. But whatever it is, whether we just check the building codes, if they have done something, there could very likely be something to what this lady is saying. And none of us here are experts, but I think that the pressure needs to be put on Altis somehow, whether it's the newspaper, whether it's a citizen volunteer being an advocate. I don't think it's city staff's responsibility unless it's an ordinance.
Right.
But Eddie's right. I think we have an obligation to see what we can do, and it's a moral obligation, not a legal one, in my opinion. So I don't know what anybody would say of that, but has anybody contacted Altis to know, or is there a way, Mr. Smith, to know if there are building or I don't know if the building goes, but if there's some sort of regulations that determine these distances, because this sounds like it's very reasonable, like it's a very strong possibility, but.
To answer the question, I have no idea if there is a regulation in the building code. We don't oversee permit installation of communication services. There are ordinance in the codes. It looks like through the documentation, they reached out to them. Staff did get 2 complaints filed back in August, and this matter is a civil matter that she would have to take upon herself. It's because there's nothing in place for us to address this.
Okay, so she needs an advocate, whether she pays for it or somebody volunteers. What I'm reading into what you say, and I understand, right? Yeah, it's a civil matter, so
I can't tell. Why am
I wasn't sure.
Can I say something? Please?
Yes.
I am a master electrician specializing in industrial food grade and commercial wiring. I've worked at Merck, and so it was real easy for me to track down this unit. And the unit is according to the numbers and everything I got, is a 60 hertz router that by NEC code can be no closer than 65 feet from any dwelling. Now, some of the people who've come out to talk to me has told me it was a generator and left it at that. Another guy told me it was above his pay grade. Another guy came out and told me I wouldn't be able to get TV if he unhooked me from it. And I showed him the two antennas I have in my window saying, no, I'm fine. I got plenty of TV. We don't need this one. And I've also tracked out the circuitry as to how it's wired. I do have a couple questions on some of it, but I do know that this particular unit is only hooked up to two buildings, building 10 and building 11. The unit is set to service 250 homes. That's enough to power the homes between you and me right now. I made a comment to someone at Altice that, you know, I could power these two buildings off my cell phone, and the guy couldn't disagree. So, you know, somehow they have in their records that I am not a client of theirs and referred me back to management. Okay, I talked to my lawyer and he called her, and the manager refuses to do anything whatsoever, period. So, I mean, I'm just at wit's end now. You know, I don't know. I just need some help.
Mr. Campbell, did you have a comment?
My lease is,
I'm turning over the floor to one of the aldermen, please.
sorry.
This might be a little bit outside the box, but as I was sitting here and listening to what Alderman Gardner was saying and stuff, the thought came into my mind that if it were me, I would contact Ashley Reynolds and see if she will investigate it. And Alderman Gardner put that thought in my head whenever he said the word advocate. That's not that's just my opinion. It's not coming from the city of Ozark. It's coming from Eddie Campbell. Okay.
Well, and as far as this type of router box, I'm not aware of any codes that say it can't be within a certain amount, but I think that's something that Cameron, do you think that's something that one of our city inspectors might be able to look into just to make sure there's nothing behind that? I don't believe that I know of anything like that, but
I would caution you, if we're gonna look into this, we're going to every resident, look at their
okay.
internet
Yeah,
service.
I understand.
Yeah, like I said, we corresponded and I talked to the property manager and she's been working with that property manager, but she made reference to having a legal counsel. I would encourage her to pursue that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Childers, I believe. Okay. Alderman Aldridge.
I was just, it seems like we should know if there is a code that, I mean, shouldn't we as a city
Well,
ensure that people go by the codes?
yes, and we do. I would say
Let me
that
see.
looking at the outside of the house, the equipment's pretty standard. In my opinion, it's pretty standard, but like I said, I don't see anything with
You
that.
have an opinion, but I'm talking about legally. I'd like to know.
Right, yeah,
They have broken
Thank
the
you.
code.
thank you.
Mr. Childers.
Yeah, I just wanted to again, might I make a suggestion that we at least evaluate the International Building Code. We can look at that. We can determine whether or not the city has any authority over that. As Mr. Smith said earlier, we do not inspect community services. That is not something that the city of Ozark inspects. There's a lot of legislation at the state level that prohibits us from doing that. And that doesn't give us the authority to dictate where that goes. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that if there is a law that exists, that we cannot research to determine whether or not a 60 hertz router should be 55 feet from any dwelling unit, as related to building number 10 and 11. That's probably something that is a question that we can at least evaluate to determine whether or not that is a fact. But and we can relay that information back, but for the purpose of tonight, I don't believe there's any emergency action that the Board of Aldermen can take. As we wouldn't be authorized to govern communication equipment, which has pretty much been taken out of our purview with regards to state legislation, whether it be above ground, below ground, or next to a building. But we're happy to research it and get back to the Board of Aldermen and let them know, as well as our citizen that has a concern.
Chief Arnold, would you like to say a word on this?
So I don't have any input as far as the IBC codes or anything like that. But what I can offer is that the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services actually offers an advocate service for seniors. You can either go onto their website, or that's information that I could provide in response to this. In addition to that, I don't know what the name of it is, but they have an advisory council of seniors that volunteer their time to act as advocates for seniors in different communities as different problems arise and things like that. So again, I can't speak to the IBC and those type of things. That's completely outside of my purview. However, I do think, hearing what a lot of you are stating, that there's already a system in place for an advocate to be provided to Ms. Stevens that could help her through the situation that she's facing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Alders next.
I would be interested in having the city look into that.
Mr. Gardner.
Just to piggyback on that, I would recommend that whoever the complaint or the request went to, which I assume was the city clerk to speak, that the information that the chief of police has as to who might be an advocate, that he give that to our city clerk and have her pass that along to this lady. I think that's the least we can do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Excellent. Any other comments from the board on this? So I guess where we're at is we'll get her in touch with this advocacy group and provide that information.
Research the matter and let you know what we find out.
See what exactly is going on out there. Or okay. Mrs. Stevens, I appreciate your time on this and appreciate you reaching out to us. And sounds like we'll be in touch with you.
Thank you so much, each and every one of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to first reading of bills and resolutions. Mr. Galloway.
That we place bill number 3423 on its first reading by title only.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway to put and seconded by Alderman Campbell to put bill 3423 on its first reading by title only. All those in favor?
An ordinance approving the preliminary plat for Winston Heights and authorizing the Director of Planning and Development to accept the dedication of the public streets and easements to the city as shown on the preliminary plat upon the applicant filing and recording a final plat that substantially conforms to the preliminary plat, and authorizing the city clerk to sign the final plat upon compliance with the terms of this ordinance.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Yes, the application is for the preliminary plat of Winston Heights. The proposed preliminary plat does conform to the R1C zoning of the 10,000 square foot lots. The infrastructure near the site and the development does have capacity to serve this development and can be extended by the developer for this future plat. During the design phase of the infrastructure, staff will further review with our third-party engineers that can confirm compliance to the ordinances and requirements. The applicant is also working with the Ozark Special Road District as for additional off-site road improvements to 20th Street, and is in coordination with them to complete a traffic study to determine those requirements. Based on the staff report, staff findings, staff did recommend approval of this preliminary plat with the condition that any additional off-site roadway improvements as determined by the Ozark Special Road District be completed. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval as well. Be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Gardner.
A couple of questions. Number one, does this preliminary plat include a pool?
Preliminary plat does not include a pool.
Okay, just out of curiosity, how many lots are there in that subdivision?
I'll let the applicant answer that for sure, because I don't want to misspeak and I don't get called
All
to.
right, oh, that's fine. I know that we don't have any kind of a regulation on that. I'm asking it just out of curiosity. The second question is that neighborhood improvement district still in effect in that area? Or has that been settled long ago? I know that there used to be a sewer.
The state date, my understanding is that has been taken off.
Okay, I need to know. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none. Guess we'll hold this over till the public. Open this. I'll open it for public. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this bill in favor of? Please come up, sir.
Name's John Sarah. I live at 1301 East Daniel Street. I am representing Matt Arthur, the developer for this project. Mr. Gardner, there's 91 lots in the subdivision. You asked how many lots? 91. Yes. Actually, the 91st lot is a rather large lot, but it is still a lot and it does conform. So, do you all have any questions for me?
Mr. Campbell.
I read through it and there's a lot there to read, so I may have misunderstood something, but I thought in my reading that the special road district had already had a survey done. Is that true?
There's already been a traffic study done.
Okay,
Yes.
I thought there had been.
Yes.
Okay, and they said no, there weren't any requirements. What
I
was?
know that the traffic study said that there wasn't any requirements required or any requirements, but the special road district, they, at the time of us submitting, they did not have a letter to us yet.
Okay.
So we're still looking back and forth a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just my personal opinion, I'm surprised that there's no turn lanes or something required there, but that's not for this board to determine. It's not our road, but just whatever. Thank you.
Mr. Gardner, did you have a comment?
I got a question. I like Mr. Campbell. I'm very familiar with this. This was an attempt was made to develop this probably 10 or 15 years ago, more like 15. And I'm looking on the trying to find the diagram. I want to make sure that I'm asking the question right. Does that? Okay, that does not go all the way up to the corner. Okay, to the corner of 20th and Longview.
No.
Okay, the only frontage is on North 20th Street.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there any common area in there that needs to be maintained by a homeowners association?
Yes, there is. If you look at the northwest corner, there is actually a floodplain area that's there, and that's delineated on the plat. And there is a place where it does actually call out park area, common area dedicated for public use. There are also trails that come through the system or the subdivision itself that we've worked with Public Works to make sure that it all connects and everything with what their plan is.
Well, I'm concerned with the term park area dedicated for public use. I don't want to do anything that's going to make anybody think that the city is accepting responsibility for this as a park. And if it's a floodplain area and totally unusable, unbuildable, are there provisions in a homeowners association or covenants or something that's going to require somebody other than the city to maintain that?
The intent of this area is for the folks in this subdivision, and the developer, his intent is that the HOA would take care of it.
Okay, well, just to go on record, John, unless that is given to us in some sort of form that we can bank on, so to speak, I am not going to vote for it.
Yes, please.
John, I might be able to read this. I think what he's asking is the note. I may stop. It doesn't, the note specifies it shall be owned and maintained by the HOA or the property owners if that's not active. It doesn't say dedicated to the public. That's our note in our subdivision regulations.
or the property owners.
Subdivisions,
Yeah.
lot owners in there. So if the HOA goes to fall, it's the responsibility of individual lot owners within that subdivision.
And that wording, is there some way we can require that wording be in the covenants?
That's on the plat. So when the plat gets recorded, that note is on the plat. It's
Okay, well, that's all well and good, but then there's still no way of making sure that the homeowners know that. So we could still, I mean, I understand we may be doing all we can do. So I'm not faulting staff for having that on there. But boy, this tonight and a couple of months, this just goes on and on, John, and you know that. We get rookie dude into stuff, that's not the right word. We've not been fooled. We just get put in a position where people think it's our responsibility to take care of things that it is not. And I want to make sure before I vote on this, that is not going to be an issue. So just fair warning.
Ms. Galloway has a comment.
In response to the question about it being in the covenants, the planning department sends the proposed covenants to the law department and we review to ensure that the HOA is responsible for the maintenance of the common areas.
Okay.
So that will be in the covenants.
Okay, and will we see the covenants before we vote on the final plan or the final plan?
Staff reviews it and confirms that if it doesn't contain that language, I work with the planning department to ensure it does contain that language. And once planning has reviewed that and signed off on it, then it moves forward.
So you're assuring us then, Ms. Callaway, that once we approve a final preliminary plat, that there will be something in position to be enforced for that. I mean, whether it's been recorded or not, or however it's done, you're saying that will not be an issue.
That's correct. The covenants, and we amended the code section a few years ago to ensure that the maintenance responsibility of the common areas are to the HOA. And if the HOA becomes defunct or dissolves, then it will be split equally among the property owners. And so we have two safeguards, both by our city code and requiring it on the plat, and then also by requiring it to be listed in the covenants.
Okay, well, let me ask you another. Boy, you probably think I'm going down a rabbit trail, and I apologize, folks. But if that language is in the covenants and those covenants are recorded and they go with, they accompany the title that someone gets to the property when they get a warranty deed. And it's in the title report that they get that says there are covenants. Okay, I'm just concerned that there still could be a situation where somebody would buy a lot or a house and not realize the potential responsibility or liability. And I don't know how to overcome that, but that's been a problem, this kind of thing for years, but this just seems to come to a head lately. So in other words, you're saying the best that we can do to notify people that might be landowners is to have it in the covenants, which they are required to know about, but doesn't always happen.
The only way that I'm familiar with communicating types of requirements that run with land is to record them. And then when you purchase the land, you have a duty as the purchaser to review what's been recorded, not to say that's the practice of everyone, but that is the most legal way to do that.
Okay.
And the city is doing that.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thanks, John.
Alderman Campbell, did you have a comment? Okay. Any other questions for the board for the applicant? Okay, no problem.
Is this the land that Larry Snyder owned?
Yes.
Okay. You had mentioned trails. Is this a part of our trail system? You're probably not the one to ask, but I guess Mr. Parsons.
What I can tell you about the trails is that we coordinated with Public Works to place the trails in accordance with how they would like to see them on the plat.
Okay. Could you have Mr. Parsons step up if you?
Mr. Parsons, would you like to, if we're done with the applicant? Yeah, at that point,
yeah.
If all questions are, unless there's any other questions from the board for the applicant, or are we moving on? Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Parsons.
Thank you. Yes, we did coordinate with Mr. Sayer and with the property owner. And we refer to our OTO master plan for the trail network. And what we've done here is pass those layers on to Mr. Sayer. And we've identified where the trail would connect. This is essentially a spur of the Chadwick Flyer. So the goal here is to connect communities such as Creek Bridge, Mulberry, now Winston, all into the Chadwick Flyer. So we're utilizing that master plan to dictate where these trails will go, and they're following along with that.
Would that particular spur go through the Stein linear property, Cali Springs on down to OTC? Is that where that's going?
This one's a little further to the east. The spur you're talking about is further to the west, and it goes through Cali Springs and then the Fremont area, down Fremont Road, Stein property, all the way to OTC. This one essentially connects Mulberry, Creek Bridge and all those, because we want them to have a nice connection.
Okay,
Yeah.
but there's, so the Cali Springs Stein property, it goes more north. It doesn't really.
It's another spur that comes further from the west, connecting OTC and then capturing up to the Chadwick Flyer.
Okay.
So you just it's almost like tributaries that are funneling you to the Chadwick Flyer.
Okay.
So.
Got it.
Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for this bill? Do we have anybody on Zoom tonight? Okay. Is anybody here that would like to speak in opposition of this? Hearing none, I will close the public portion of this and turn it back over to the board for any final comments or questions regarding this bill. Hearing none, this will be held over to the next legislative meeting. Moving on. So, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3424 on its first reading by title only.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Campbell to place bill 3424 on its first reading by title only. All those in favor?
An ordinance approving the state of Missouri cooperative purchasing agreements to utilize the cooperative procurement program.
Okay.
I can introduce this bill.
Okay, perfect.
The city code requires that the Board of Aldermen authorize any cooperative purchasing agreement ahead of the use of that agreement. So it can be done at the time that the staff member wants to utilize that contract, or if you have a cooperative purchasing program, such as the state of Missouri operates, you can approve all of those available contracts at once at the beginning of the year, which will utilize and allow staff to utilize those contracts if they have the item budgeted. So it just makes a more effective and efficient procedure for buying items on our cooperative purchasing state contract list. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this? Mr. Campbell.
I'll admit I didn't study this one very well, but theoretically, would this mean that I know in the past, anytime we purchase vehicles for the police department, we authorize that purchase as it occurred. Does this mean that any purchases over $20,000, even a vehicle would not even have to come to us, or what does that mean?
The way that the city code establishes is if it's a cooperative purchasing program such as this, and the item is already budgeted and it's over 20,000, then the staff can go ahead and purchase it utilizing a contract that's provided through that procurement program. If the item is not budgeted and it's over 20,000, then it would kick it back to the Board of Aldermen to approve spending those funds, because the city administrator is only authorized up to that 20,000. In the past, the police department has procured some vehicles that were not on this list, and that also would require you to come to the Board of Aldermen due to the cost of the vehicles and them not being previously authorized.
Okay. Any other questions? None. I'll open it up to the public if there's anyone here to speak for this bill. Is there anybody here to speak in opposition? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and turn it back over to the board. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll hold this over to the next legislative session. Moving on to the next bill, Alderman Gardner.
All right, I move that we put bill 3425 on its first reading by title only.
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Campbell to place bill 3425 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance awarding a contract and authorizing the city to enter into a contract for construction services with Ewing Signal Construction LLC.
Mr. Parsons.
All right, good evening. We'll make this quick. We've got a PowerPoint presentation just to show the location. Anyone that's lighting, see it. Okay. So I just want you all to see where we're putting this. This was originally part of the Jackson Street improvements, and if you'll recall, the Jackson Street improvements kind of well, they expanded with the additional underpasses and some amenities that we provided to that. So what we chose when we did this bid packet back in, gosh, I was pulling this up. This was 2020 when this original presentation, some of this was put together. We chose to just focus on the lighting that was required by MoDOT at the intersections of 12th and NN. And what we did in turn was we went ahead and stubbed out and provide conduit for the rest of the lighting. So basically this was a budget matter. We wanted to spend that money on the underpasses, the trail, the amenities, but we prepared ourselves for the lighting in the future. So if you drive down Jackson Street right now, you will see multiple pedestals already stubbed out with conduit. So this project just goes above and beyond, and we were looking at this together. We did this at a Board of Alderman breakfast meeting almost 3 years ago now. We were looking at it and looking at the pricing. At the time, we were thinking it would take 20 lights to light that corridor. We did a photometric analysis, and we really got it down to 13 now. And we do feel like that'll be lit for both vehicles and pedestrians. You saw that we have pedestrian lighting around the softball field. So this bid packet tonight provides 13 light poles. The conduit is there, as we said, they're going to be pulling the wire. So you got about 3,500 feet of wire. It is really a plug and play. I know you're just putting these lights, the post, and everything up in place and pulling the wire. We are going with the black powder. We want this to be aesthetically pleasing. We're comfortable with the bid as well. I was going back after we had our conversation. The engineered estimate was 137 and the actual bid came in at 119. So I'm happy with the numbers we've received. And this is not just your typical lighting. This is dark sky lighting, which I think is huge. As you know, we have passed an ordinance. Cameron and his crew worked on this quite extensively. And I feel like we should practice what we preach. And these lights will be dark sky compliant. And it'll be about a 2200 Kelvin, which is that nice warm light that doesn't overpower. And I put a couple pictures here. This is an area that they got a little crazy on the lights. That'll just blind you as you get out. What we're looking for is a softer light that specifically illuminates the areas that we need illuminated and don't pollute the other areas. If you go back to that other picture, you can see it, it looks like flashes are going off in a stadium. If you look at this, the roadway is still lit nicely, and that's that IDA component of it. So with that, that's any questions. I just wanted to fill you in on where we're at.
Mr. Campbell.
Really just out of curiosity, the anchor bolts are already in place, correct?
That's correct.
On the pedestals?
Yeah.
How did we know the anchor bolt pattern whenever we built those
We
pedestals?
spec this out from this old, we did this old study. We knew the type of light that MoDOT, from a pedestal standpoint and anchor bolt standpoint, they've only have so many options. So we knew what we would use. Now, we didn't know what we'd use with the actual fixture.
Right.
But we prepared for all that, and that's why we went through that presentation. The first time was to say, hey, we're gonna stub it out. We don't have the money to do it, but we're gonna prepare for it.
Okay.
So,
we're pretty sure we got the right anchor bolts.
yes, sir. I've seen the shop drawings and they've been confirmed by the engineer record.
All right.
Yeah, we've
I
been,
figured you had, but I just curious.
Ms. Alder.
And when would this happen? When would this take place?
this is the first reading. We'll go forward with the second reading. Hopefully we'll sign a notice to proceed mid-February. I know that, like I was just telling Mr. Campbell, I'm already reviewing the shop drawings, which means that this guy, you know, has some things that he's working on, and hopefully we're gonna order as soon as we get this approved. So it's in motion. I hope to have everything up. My big goal, I know it's not that big of a project, but another amenity to this is they're actually set up for Christmas lights as well. They've got an opportunity to plug in Christmas lights on that. So I think we've got plenty of time, but I definitely want to see Jackson Street lit up for Christmas next year.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
My question. You say a soft, are you using high pressure sodium or LED? Because I read high pressure sodium up there.
Yeah, we go back to that shop drawing. So it's kind of it's an LED light, but it's a lower Kelvin light. So it's not high pressure sodium, it's LED, but they actually soften the light. But a lot of studies show that the lighting is much more efficient from an from an electrical usage standpoint, and it's much more direct in lighting the areas that you're trying to light without it spilling everywhere else.
Yep, and that I do, I taught that for a long time.
That's part of what you talked to us
Exactly.
about, yeah.
My question is, why an amber colored light? Why not a brighter colored light?
So it's basically something that's softer that we have a theme with in the downtown as well. I don't know if you've noticed our shepherd's hook lights in the downtown. And then we've also done several studies, and I'd be happy to send these to you. We've read several studies. I haven't done these, but the white and the bluish light, they're finding that it does have some medical impacts. It's a harsher light, and it causes, well, there's a number of different symptoms that, but it's basically to provide that nostalgic, old-timey feel like we've got in the downtown. But it'll still accomplish everything, like, you know, with septet and everything. It's all about providing the light.
Yes, I like the idea that is going forward, but I look at it from a public safety point of view.
Mhm.
Anytime you have a lower grade of light, especially on the law enforcement side of things, it's harder for a law enforcement officer to get a good physical description and good color rendition under an amber colored light. I'm just curious because this is what I found.
Yeah.
Okay, has that option been discussed with public safety about the type of lighting that we're going to use?
I know that we've discussed IDA in the past, but we've really not specifically on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Campbell.
Just one thing to say about the contractor. I know Dave Ewing. He's a heck of a good guy. I don't know that the city has ever had a contract with him. I know that he's done a lot of work in the city with, you know, under Hartman Construction or whoever.
Yes.
Done a lot of street lights, and I know back about, 15 years ago, whenever Walmart was being built, and then Lowe's, and then the extra street lights there on, traffic lights on 17th Street.
Yeah.
And he was there on those projects, but just I've worked with Dave a lot, and he's got a good company going.
He does, and he's a go-getter. You see him almost everywhere around town. I mean, Ewing has really blossomed into a big.
So have we actually done work with him?
He subbed on several different projects. I haven't worked with him directly, but he did work with CMT and ESS on the Jackson Street project. He's worked with Hartman on the trail project. He's worked all over the place putting fiber in for MoDOT. You probably saw him down all our corridors putting fiber in as well. So we've got a good working relationship with Dane. This will be the first one where he's the primary contractor as opposed to a sub in my tenure anyways.
Yeah. He can handle it, I'm sure.
Anything else?
Any other questions for Mr. Parsons? Thank you, sir. I'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody here to speak for this bill? Is there anybody here to speak against this bill? Okay, well, hearing none, I'll close the public portion of this, turn it back over to the board for any final questions or comments. All right, hearing none, we'll hold this bill over to the next legislative session. On to second readings and final passage of bills. Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3419 on its second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Campbell to place bill 3419 on its second reading by title only. All those in favor?
Amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 405, zoning regulations to add language regulating marijuana facilities.
Okay. Who'll be taking this one? Okay. Any questions from the board or comments? Mr. Galloway.
Just for members of the public who are checking in on this particular ordinance. We've discussed this ordinance pretty in depth and, well, pretty in depth, very in depth, and kind of plumbed the issue of, can we avoid an ordinance like this? And the constitutional amendment that was passed by the voters in Missouri was extremely well drafted, and it does present what I've referred to as a Hobson's choice for municipalities such as ours. And that means really no choice at all in terms of how it's drafted. And so it's the responsible thing to get ahead of the issue and to pass this kind of ordinance. That was my comment.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? If none, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move that we enact bill number 3419 as ordinance number 23-010.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Campbell to adopt bill 3419 as ordinance 23-010. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Galloway,
Aye.
Alderman Campbell,
Aye.
Alderman Alder, Alderman Gardner, Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to the next bill, Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3420 on its second reading by title only.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Snyder to place bill 3420 on its second read by title only. All those in favor?
Ordinance authorizing the city to enter into a contract with Dynamic Construction Systems LLC for construction services related to the Brick Street remodel.
Okay, any questions from the board? Or comments? Oh,
Hi, do you guys mind if I sit over here? It's hard for me to run it and run back over. So if you don't mind, I'll just do it from here. The Brick Street remodel, I wanted to kind of give some background on it, just so if anyone was watching, they would understand what it was. The Brick Street is basically the plaza that houses the police department. It housed St. Matthew's Church. It housed our municipal court. It has our law department and also has our public works on it. It's over to the side over the building over here. Basically, this is what it sort of looks like right now. I added the red line so you would sort of understand where it was. And these are the breakdowns of what the facility basically was now at this point, kind of, because we sort of ripped out, demoed it. So it's mostly like this right now. Phase 1 of the project is basically this red area in the middle. It was the previous space of the municipal court and also the St. Matthew Church. Right now, it's going to be remodeled to offices that the planning and development department will use, and also some rooms with lockers and bathrooms and some storage for the police department. We are seeking a contract with Dynamic Construction. Basically, they'll do all the tenant infill. The contract price is $614, and we have it budgeted with ARPA funds, and then also the rest will come from general fund. for the project.
Any questions for Mrs. Payne? Mr. Campbell?
I'm trying to remember, are we going to have in this remodel phase, are we going to have separate men's and women's shower / locker rooms? Or did that get changed or am I remembering?
Well, we were looking at that, if we have to do any sort of come back to the board at like a change order, you guys will have to approve that because it probably will be over 20,000. So we're looking at developing that. We're looking at more of a room with lockers in it and then some bathrooms for the police department as well, kind of trying to balance that area right now. So right now, this design with this contract does not have it inside there, but we are looking at some options for it. And if we do move forward with that, it will come back before the board as a change order.
Okay, and this may be premature, but are we looking at having separate locker rooms?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There'll be a men's and a women's, and then it will have 2 stalls. So the men's will have a urinal and a toilet, and then the women's will have 2 toilet stalls, and then a shower in each one. For men's and women's, and then a room. I don't want to call it a locker room because that gives the impression that it's something like the OC where it's different. That feels different to me than a room with lockers in it and then a separate shower bathroom area. And then they're also looking at possibly some storage areas that will help with alleviate some of the stress off the PD.
And just one other thing, and I'll hush. Will the ladies have a place to breastfeed if necessary?
Lactation, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know what this called. That's
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move that we enact bill number 3420 as ordinance number 23-011.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Snyder to adopt Bill 3420 as ordinance 23-011. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Gardner.
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Alder.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Gardner.
I move that we put Bill 3421 on second reading by title only. Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Campbell to place Bill 3421 on its first reading by title only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into a contract with Smith & Edwards Construction Incorporated for construction services related to the 2022 sanitary sewer treatment and system improvements.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, well, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt Bill 3421 as ordinance 23-012. Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Campbell to adopt Bill 3421 as ordinance 23-012. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Alder.
Aye.
Alderman Gardner.
Aye.
Alderman Snyder.
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes, motion carries.
Okay, report of officers, boards and committees. Mr. Childers.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything new. I'm happy to entertain any questions from the board if they have any about anything that's going on around town.
What is,
Oh, go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. What is being built across from the volleyball?
I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Smith. I believe I know what it is, but I'm going to let him answer it.
Building across the building on the side is first part of the building.
Mr. Snyder, I believe you're next.
My question,
Yes, sir.
couple that lost their home in the building, are they taken care of? I mean, did they find new living arrangements? Else?
Do you have an answer? The ones that were above the coffee house. Once they got their private belongings out of there, at the, with the help of the contractor, I'm not sure where they have relocated. Just as a brief update, everything was going extremely well. The what was once the interior wall, which is now the exterior wall, was being worked on yesterday. As you know, I was down here watching that. There was some shoring work going on there. It's not done yet to be able to secure that per the recommendation of the structural engineer, but that is underway. The city did work with the owners as well as HID to save as many pallets of bricks as possible, that as well as some very unique historic features from the old elevator that is in the building that we are allowing storage of on one of our properties. We think that in talking to the contractors today, the area will be secured once it's done. As you can see, there's clean chat down there, and once it's shored up, there will be a construction fence that remains around that area. There was a meeting with the property owners today. They have been excellent to work with through this entire challenging time. They are looking at all of their options as to what they may need to go forward, whether to take part in possibly being the ones that maybe put a new building on that site, or maybe work with somebody else to do so. Either way, they certainly have proven that they have the best interest of the downtown area and at heart, and they want to remain a part of the being invested in downtown. So everything has gone great, and all the partners we worked with have just done an excellent job.
Gotcha. I would just want to make sure that, I know that we're not responsible to make sure they have a home. But I think morally, just reach out to make sure that they're being taken care of. I mean, that's as citizens, I mean, as leaders of the community, I think that's something we should do. Second part, the coffee shop, did they get a new place of business or temporary setup?
Is there
No, they have not had a temporary place or determined where that would be. In a meeting with the owner today, the coffee shop owner has conveyed to that building owner that at this time, they don't plan to reopen. They have inquired about selling some of their products. They're not quite sure if they will reopen. If the building is built back, they don't plan to look at any other location. However, they have requested that the owner, if they do build a building, to allow them to have first opportunity to go in that space. But at this time, no, they don't plan to reopen.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Gardner. Mr. Currents in the audience can answer the question about the status of the renters. So I would think, Sir Don, can you answer that?
I do believe I have to ask you to state your name and address.
Don Currents. I live at 1202 East Melanie Lane. The Moots are part of our church at First Baptist Ozark. Currently, they're staying with her parents, Jason and Jen Avery, until they are able to relocate. The church, we are reaching out to them. They did lose most of their items. They did get a few things, but we're doing online shower for them right now. She gave us a list of things that they're missing because they have a baby due in May. And so our church is reaching out to them and helping try to meet some of their needs at this time.
Anyone in our city that don't suffer bad like that or any kind of incident.
All right. Any other reports from staff tonight or? Okay. Any other miscellaneous comments or announcements from members of the board? Okay. Yeah.
So on the Willow Terrace, 3 or 4 lots, or how many that is, the ones that Alderman Alder asked about. They only have for infill on one of the buildings.
So it's referred to as an infill, but that's actually an Ozark Mountain Crossroads. That's not in Willow Terrace, the one that's currently permitted. It's just to the west of Willow Terrace.
Okay,
Okay. We called it an infill because at the time we had two Chris Carter projects going on. And so we noted it as an infill because in our permitting system, it's commercial new / infill. So that was just a tracking thing for us, but they're building a complete new building. To the east of there, just to further answer that, in Willow Terrace, we're currently reviewing for 2 permits for another office warehousing, just west of Blue Stem, on those 2 lots there in Willow Terrace along the end.
is that a Carter thing too? I know it's a
That's,
Willow Terrace thing.
Jared Enterprises is building those.
Yeah, okay. So the one that started to put their MoDOT entrance in and then MoDOT stopped them and now they're back on it. Is that the Carter?
Yes, that's the Carter facility. They started, just to clarify on the entrance, they actually started that just because they wanted to go ahead and drop the building on site for storage, and we allowed them to do that before a permit. So they were just actually setting the structure on the ground in bundles, and they temporarily made an entrance there, not realizing the concern of the water depth, because the water's pretty shallow along the road there. And so that's why they took it back out to cover that line back up. And so, yes, that was a temporary drive that was removed until it got permitted.
So what they're putting in now is permanent, right? It's
permitted now.
Okay. It's RCP going in, is
probably so. I'm not.
Looks like they got it in mostly.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked my question is on page 1 of your report. Where we have the 4 commercial new and infill permits. We have a Carter infill lot 27.
That's what I'm saying. It's actually a new building. It's not an infill.
Okay.
Strike the word infill. That was a tracking thing internally.
Okay. So that's part of my question. The other part is on the second page, we have a Carter infill Willow Terrace permitted project under construction. And this one is under new permit. What's the difference in the new permit and
the versus a typo? I'll say that what has happened is through the process of a month, something happened and then it transitioned to another step in the process.
Okay.
That's why you're seeing it twice on our list. So you have a commercial new infill permit, and then further down, you will have one that's actually under construction. So in the beginning of the month, they were working on the permit. Before the month was over, they got approval, and that's why it's showing up twice on your list.
Okay, so the real terrace under project under construction is correct. And which one's the typo?
I will retract that. It is in Willow Terrace. I'm thinking of the new Sonic, which is in Ozark Mountain Crossroads.
Okay.
I apologize. Terrace. I just noticed what's going on up there. We're talking about stormwater and anything. So
okay,
it is in Willow Terrace.
Okay. Yes. And they have a work under construction in Willow Terrace and an infill permit in Willow Terrace.
Again, it is a new construction, is not an infill. In the early part of the month, they were in review of the permit. Before the month ended, because we do a month report, it transitioned to a under construction. So they have now in the month, within a 30-day time span. Okay. It had 2 steps going on in the process. And that is a pretty common occurrence through our permitting, because something's happening twice on that within that 30-day period.
But I guess my ultimate question is if it was or is or ever was an infill.
It never was an infill.
Okay, so infill
it's a new
one.
We had a discussion internally with staff just before this meeting. And yes, that was again for tracking, because if you look on under construction, there's Carter building and Carter infill. Okay, and it was a terminology we was using internally to separate the two.
To separate the two. Okay. I apologize for.
I was confused. That's why I had to get an explanation today.
You ever use the terms white box and dark box?
Or white box.
Would that work better in something like this?
Just maybe a new project. We do use that when it actually is one of those. Starbucks is permitted as a gray box.
Correct. Okay.
Or was. Now it's a full infill.
All right. I apologize.
All right.
Little Bluebird Deli.
Yep. Inside the facility there, they're building. They're taking just a minimal corner of that building and putting in a deli. So inside the antique store, the little Bluebird, they're putting a little sandwich deli shop inside.
Which antique store?
The little Bluebird. It's
Where is
down down by the ambulance and I guess we're antique, all the antiques.
Oh, another place to eat. Good.
Mr. Galloway.
Um, just some comments about the appeal that we heard from the developer. There was, this bit of not crossfire, I guess the point that the developer was making, that he was saying he felt misled about whether there could be a variance with that ordinance, and it very much seemed to me that you were doing what we hope as a board that you do, which is to offer flexibility where you can to avoid harsh results. It does seem to me that with this plat process that we have, and I'm not necessarily saying that that should be changed, not that at all, but now that we see the set of facts come through where you're like, oh, well, what would happen if the homeowners association said they don't want a pool? Well, now we know. Doesn't make a bit of difference. You follow the plat. And I think that's a lesson that we all kind of learned today, and something that can sink in when we're talking to developers. Be careful what you wish for on that plat, because when you make it a preliminary plat, if you're not providing a substantially conforming final plat, you're done.
Mr. Snyder. Mr. Campbell. Golly. I know, you guys are gonna have to change seats. I tell you, calling you the wrong name all the time.
I echo what Alderman Galloway said, and I got to tell you, I'm amazed at the amount of facts that Director Smith laid out there. He makes our work easy, and we're fortunate to have him.
Absolutely. Yes, Mr. Childers.
I did forget something, just one more reminder. Our non-legislative work session this Thursday at 8:30 is actually at the OC. It's not in here. I didn't want anybody, Ms. Payne didn't want anybody to forget because we haven't done that yet. So that's where it's going to be. This will be working, as you can see in here. You've got brand new monitors and different things that are happening and stuff. So we're under construction in here. So anyway, 8:30 at the OC this Thursday.
8:30 at the OC.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, or is that it? If so, I will entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Good to doing all those in favor? All those in favor? Throw my hand up too, I guess.